It really looks like Marvel is finally ready to put the spotlight on Kitty Pryde, and that's a pretty big deal because she hasn't had much of a chance to shine outside of the comics before. Reports suggest that the very first movie in Marvel's brand new X-Men saga could actually revolve around Kitty, which instantly got fans buzzing. On top of that, Bella Ramsey, the breakout star from Game of Thrones and The Last of Us, is apparently in the running for the role. That makes things even more exciting because Ramsey has proven themselves to be a versatile actor who can carry emotionally heavy material, and Kitty is the character who definitely deserves an actor with that kind of range. Marvel Studios has been gearing up for this X-Men reboot for years now, and it's finally starting to feel like things are moving. They've tapped Thunderbolts director Jake Schreier to lead the project, while Michael Leslie, who wrote The Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, is on board as the writer. Together, they'll be responsible for shaping how the mutants are introduced into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But timing is everything here, because Marvel has already said the X-Men won't officially join the MCU until after Avengers: Secret Wars wraps up the multiverse saga. That means Kitty Pryde's movie might actually serve as the launching point for Marvel's next saga after all the multiverse chaos winds down. And really, that would make sense. Because Kitty is such a unique character, she could provide a fresh way into this new version of the X-Men. Instead of jumping straight into a team movie, Marvel could use her perspective as a kind of gateway character who introduces audiences to the mutant world. It's a strategy that worked in the comics too, where Kitty often played the role of the wide-eyed newcomer who slowly grew into one of the most capable and reliable X-Men. Now, when it comes to casting, Marvel is clearly trying to find the right balance between established names and rising stars. Bella Ramsey is an interesting choice because they're still young but already have an impressive resume. They've even mentioned in interviews that they'd like to tackle more layered or villainous roles someday, even joking about wanting to play someone as complex as the Joker. So while they haven't done a superhero role yet, they've got the acting chops to pull off Kitty, who has plenty of emotional complexity herself. Of course, some fans are skeptical, just like they are with pretty much any big casting rumor, but if Marvel really goes with Ramsey, it would signal that they're looking for performers who can handle nuance rather than just flashy action. Of course, Ramsey isn't the only name being thrown around. The rumor mill has been wild lately. There have been whispers about Bryan Cranston potentially playing Professor X, Daisy Edgar Jones being linked to Jean Grey, and Hunter Schafer rumored for Mystique. At one point, Julia Butters was even floated as Kitty Pryde, but now all signs point toward Ramsey. If they land the role, they'd likely be playing an older, more seasoned version of Kitty, not the teenager fans first met in the comics. That could actually be a smart move because it allows Marvel to sidestep direct comparisons with the 20th Century Fox version of the X-Men while still honoring Kitty's roots. And speaking of roots, it's worth looking at who Kitty Pryde is in the comics to really understand why she matters. Catherine Ann Pryde first appeared in Uncanny X-Men number 129 back in 1980, created by Chris Claremont and John Byrne. Her mutant ability is phasing, which means she can walk through solid objects and disrupt electrical fields, sometimes even simulating levitation. At just 13, she was the youngest to ever join the X-Men at the time, and her role was often that of the kid sister who contrasted with the older, more battle-hardened mutants. Over the years, Kitty grew up in the comics. She trained in combat, learned ninja stealth skills, and became one of the team's best spies and fighters. She started with the codename Sprite, tried out Ariel, and even settled on Shadowcat. Later still, she went by Kate, Star-Lord, briefly taking on her fiancé Peter Quill's mantle, and even Captain Kate Pryde when she led the Marauders as the Red Queen. In other words, she's a character who has constantly evolved, which makes her perfect for a rebooted universe that's starting fresh. She's also deeply tied to some of the most iconic X-Men storylines. For example, in the famous Days of Future Past arc, it was her consciousness from the future that traveled back in time to warn the X-Men about a dystopian nightmare. That story is still one of the franchise's most beloved and shows how central she can be to the bigger picture. Beyond the comics, Kitty has had a mixed history on screen. She showed up briefly in early Fox films. Sumela Kay played her in X-Men and Katie Stewart in X2. But it wasn't until X-Men The Last Stand and Days of Future Past that Elliot Page really brought the character to life in a significant way. Fans liked that version, but Kitty still never got the focus she truly deserved. That's why this potential Marvel reboot focusing on Kitty is so exciting. It's a chance to finally give her the spotlight, but it also raises an interesting question. How exactly could Marvel shape a Kitty Pryde movie after Avengers Secret Wars? Well, one approach could be to lean into her being the audience's guide into the mutant world. Much like how Spider-Man Homecoming introduced a younger hero navigating high school and superhero life at the same time, Kitty's story could ground the X-Men in something more personal and relatable. Because the truth is, after Secret Wars, the MCU is going to be massive, maybe even overwhelming. Audiences will have seen multiverses colliding, cosmic wars, and godlike beings everywhere. So shifting to Kitty's story, about a young mutant discovering her powers, struggling with identity, and finding a place in a world that fears her, could be the perfect reset. It would make the X-Men saga feel different from everything that came before. Another angle Marvel could take is focusing on her relationship with Black Canary. Oh wait, wrong universe. For Kitty, the key relationships would be with characters like Colossus, Wolverine, or even the younger generation of mutants. In the comics, her bond with Wolverine was particularly special, almost like a mentor-student dynamic, and that could easily be adapted for the MCU. Or Marvel could modernize her story by highlighting her leadership roles, like when she commanded the Marauders. That would set her apart from just being the rookie and show how she can hold her own among legends. Marvel might also lean into her role in Excalibur, the UK-based team that gave her more independence. Since Marvel has expressed interest in expanding globally, a Kitty-led Excalibur spin-off could be the perfect way to explore that side of the universe later down the line. And let's not forget, Kitty was revealed to be bisexual in 2020, a fact Chris Claremont has hinted at for years. Including that aspect of her identity in the MCU would add much-needed representation and depth, while also staying faithful to the comics. Of course, none of this will matter if Marvel doesn't stick the landing on casting and storytelling. Fans are already nervous because the Fox X-Men cast left such a big impact. People like Hugh Jackman's Wolverine and Patrick Stewart's Professor X are practically impossible to replace in some fans' minds. That's why Marvel has to strike a balance between honoring what came before and boldly doing something new. Kitty Pryde could be the key to making that transition work, because she was never the central focus of the Fox films. That means Marvel has more freedom to reinvent her without alienating fans. At the same time, choosing Bella Ramsey, if that's really the direction they go, would show that Marvel is doubling down on strong, character-driven storytelling. Ramsey's age also works in their favor. At 21, they could play Kitty for years to come, anchoring the X-Men saga as it unfolds. That's exactly the kind of long-term casting strategy Marvel loves, and it could pay off in a big way. Director Jake Schreier has already teased that his approach would start with strong characters and fresh perspectives, rather than just repeating what we've seen before. He hasn't revealed details, but if Kitty Pryde really is the starting point, then Marvel is clearly trying to ground the reboot in something intimate before scaling up to the larger X-Men world. A Kitty Pryde movie could launch Marvel's X-Men era after Secret Wars, offering a fresh perspective while exploring themes of identity and belonging. It sets up future team stories, but for now, fans must wait for casting and plot confirmations. Kitty may be Marvel's secret weapon for the MCU's future. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.